All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. Gonna do a book chat today with Parker and Dusty, who are here for, I guess, you're in like one of the two different book chat crews that I have, because we got the even nerdier one with Tristram about strictly fantasy books, basically. and so we're talking today about this book that I read recently and I thought was really great. And like, as you were saying before we started, Parker, relevant in today's culture, called The Professor in the Cage. And it's basically, as you can tell from the subtitle there, it's about an English professor who decides that, I do all this intellectual sparring all the time, but I'm not actually very physically tough, so I should get physically tough. So he decides to train for an MMA fight, and then he has an MMA fight. And it's a really interesting book too, because along the way we learn about the evolutionary history of how men in particular are like designed for warfare and violence. And that's why there are all sorts of cultures all across the world throughout history have had these simulated warfare rituals to get men's aggression out. And that's also why things like simulated forms of warfare like football and especially obviously MMA are super popular. And like we were talking before we started too about how I've experienced this in myself too, because I had anger problems when I was younger, and it was getting into working out was one of the things that helped me find a healthy channel for my aggression. And a lot of men do sorts of substitutes like that, even if they're not actually like soldiers fighting in war. Like they get into fist fights, or they do like intellectual sparring and have like verbally violent arguments or something. So yeah. So anyway, as we often do, do you want to start off there, Parker, by saying like kind of your general impression of the book?
Yeah, I thought the book was amazing. I thought it was a nice dissection of masculinity in general, the thought process of what is now known as toxic masculinity, but what is known just as masculinity to essentially the entire world. Although I don't know, some of the anti-masculine rhetoric is kind of seeping into the Eastern world too, from what I see. But I digress. The book kind of goes into why we as men need to feel like we can best somebody either intellectually or physically, mostly physically because that's the gifts and I guess the part of the genetic lottery that we kind of have, which is we're kind of intellectually designed to go down with the ship and save the women and the children, and we're okay with taking that. And I like the fact that it kind of I guess digests it layer by layer as to why we're evolutionarily made that way and why that's the most advantageous way to have things and why we want to from a very young age. I mean, even being on a playground, that was also mentioned in the book, as far as just being up and having a lot of energy and wanting to conquer from a very young age something. And that's just part of the being of being a man. And women don't develop that same way. I love the fact that that was also discussed. And I think that there's a big issue now where a lot of the world tries to take away the masculinity from a man and make that masculinity into a feminine kind of thought process. And those two can't mesh. We're playing two sides, like they're two very important sides, and they complement one another, but we're not playing the same game. I love books that actually say, yo, you might live in a parallel world, but it's a completely different world. And nothing is, I guess, more evident than, MMA and combat sports. And that's also talked about. And yeah, sure, there is female MMA, but it's not nearly as widely consumed or culturally as consumed as males fighting. And in every kind of culture, there's always some form of male aggression. I love that it digested all of that. It broke everything down, and we could essentially look at everything layer by layer as to why everything is and why maybe it might not be the most advantageous thing to eliminate masculinity altogether. And I love the fact that it came from an intellectual, because it seems like intellectuals are the ones that are trying to push for demasculation the most.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, that's it. That's an important point that you made there, that we need, like, cultures in general need both masculine and feminine traits. It's not like, yeah, like there can be too much masculinity and that can lead to problems for sure, but go swinging too far the other direction can be a problem too, and there should be more of like a balance. It's not the case that masculinity or femininity are bad or good. Like, they both have pros and cons, and like the well, that basically, I was just gonna go back to what I said before. Like, that's basically what this book is about for men in particular, the importance of masculinity and conflict, and having to get that out in a healthy way, basically. So yeah. So how about you, Dusty? What did you think about the book there?
I thought this book did a very good job at explaining quote unquote toxic masculinity. Uh, One of the things I really liked compared to other books is that it puts the best argument forward without trying to, I don't know what to say. He doesn't go ahead and dive hard into paint on culture war issues
Yeah.
regarding
Yeah.
masculinity and trying to fight like feminists and all that other bullshit
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we've
He
been
doesn't
used
he
to.
doesn't like swing all the way the other direction and go all like just as cringy anti SJW as cringy as SJWs can get, right?
Well, I think the most awesome part is he's probably, he's a professor, so he's in that world. He's likely pretty liberal. So when you take somebody like him and you can see him embracing like the more carnal desires regarding violence and male aggression, he does a better job at rationalizing and going into the history of things of why males do the things that they do. Um, and this is like in contrast for me reading not too long ago a Gad Sad book called The Consuming Instinct, which is mostly about the differences between men and women. Um, his arguments are all, they're not all culture war arguments, but he tends to go too hard on that. And he goes heavy into the science, but a lot of times he's just kind of painting targets at like the intellectual dark web version of postmodernists and all of that crap. So, um, the guy is a good writer. Like he's very good with a pen and pencil. He's not your typical academic who has a very dry and kind of boring way of writing. It's almost like a journal style of writing where he really talks about his inner thoughts about his training, um, and he really juxtaposes that with the history of aggression. I thought one of the most interesting part of the books is when he was talking about cowardice and how um, cowardice had much more of an impact when you were probably during the times where people were dueling each other in the streets. I remember him saying that, yeah, if you did not show up to your duel, that not only affects you, but every person in your family, your
Mm-hmm.
reputation. It would be more damaging to, it would be more damaging for you to abscond from the duel than to actually get shot and killed.
Yeah.
So, um, which makes me think, man, those guys were pretty brave that
Yeah.
were going on in these duels. And but yeah, it's and he went into honor culture as well. I know we've heard a ton about honor culture, but
Yeah.
he framed it in a way where he talks about the reputational damage and how important it is to build up a reputation. Same thing when he talked about people in prison as well, how in prison you right away have to set the expectation that you're not going to be someone to be fucked with,
Yeah.
or else you're basically just going to become a fuck hole during your stay in prison.
Yeah.
So it's a good, it's often maddening that there's these, like, if it's maddening to think that you can wipe away masculine aggression and try to hide it and sweep it under the rug and label it as something like as of toxic masculinity. um, it's ridiculous. It's almost a part of male DNA. And it can be seen that you got to get this aggression out in some way.
Hmm.
um, there's wrong ways to do it, of course,
Yeah.
but certainly this is part of the male, and it needs to be understood. It's
And
not something you can
that's
simply stop.
that's really important too, that we it's so important to understand it, because like you were making me think of all the terrible ways, that all the obviously terrible ways that the average man can get out his aggression if he doesn't have some sort of healthy way of channeling it. Like I've known family members, like men in my family, who have had problems with aggression, because it seems like something that runs in my family, which is one of the reasons that I do so many things to like make myself calmer, like working out and meditating and getting baked and all of these sorts of things. And I've seen plenty of other men. It's a stereotype for a reason, because it's often true that if there are men who are like out of shape and don't go to the gym, and they have problems with anger to begin with, maybe they'll get drunk and hit their wife or hit their kid or something like that. Like, it can get pretty fucking awful if you don't have a healthy way of channeling it.
Well, I
Mhm.
think that's where the incels come from. I mean,
Yeah.
basically, it kind of goes into Jordan Peterson. I keep on thinking of that quote: "The most dangerous person is a weak man." And a weak man that doesn't know where he sits as far as the social hierarchy goes, and he doesn't know that within himself, they do terrible things. I mean, if we talk about, I mean, in the US, there's so many different examples of shootings, like the Parkland shooter. He got rejected by his girlfriend, then everybody has to pay for that. If we look at the main incel, Elliot Rogers, I mean, he's known as ER, the supreme gentleman in some circles, because there are that many men that feel like they're that
I
was
never
crazy to
heard
me
that
too.
before.
That was crazy to me too. But there are people
Wow.
that literally look at him and go like, "Yo, he's the greatest thing that ever existed. He was the one that finally, even though there's tons of men apparently that feel like they're downtrodden by society, he was the one that stood up and said, "Hey, I'm going to finally let you all know this is how angry we are." And that goes into honor culture too, because we want to act like we're above honor culture now. Because Thomas Sowell actually is known for bringing honor culture forth with black rednecks and white liberals. That book was great about illustrating this and why honor culture ultimately isn't advantageous for society as a whole, but we still have little wisps of it in the background. And especially when you're talking about, like I said, two parallel worlds that exist at the same time, but they never touch one another. Men have their own general honor culture, because we all know that there's somebody that you work with that you know is low on the totem pole, and it's like, yo, we don't listen to him, nothing. Like, that's not his role. He might do a few things that are, okay for the team, but everybody kind of knows where their role is, and that's how men just can work together and they know their place. And men have an inner sense of place more than women do. Women are more communal. That's why they'll be like, we all need to be together and there's equality and it doesn't matter what you do. And it's like men go like, yeah, that's cool and all, but like, if we talk about it from an evolutionary point of view, it's like, if I chop down this tree, how many of these dudes behind me is actually going to be able to carry this tree back with me? It doesn't matter if he feels like he can. I need people that can actually do it. And
Mhm.
because we came from that, we still have that in our minds to this day. That's why if there's a competition of any sort, men try to sweep it. That's why there's chess tournaments that men try to sweep. There's workout tournaments where you don't even touch somebody, but you try to see if you can work out better. We have all these things that are like, how can I have a competitive way of saying I'm better than you at something? So we can figure out this hierarchy thing, and you can opt out if you're like, yo, I don't even think that I'm like ready for that heat. Like I do CrossFit. I've fought most of my entire childhood. Like I know how this whole thing goes.
Right.
You either test it or you get the hell out. You get the
Yeah.
hell out of the
You
building. Every
you
man
know,
needs.
that reminds me of how, oh yeah, I remembered this. I wrote a I wrote a blog for the Mixed Mental Arts website a long time ago because I that's how I first started communicating with Hunter on Twitter, because I think it was something about one of the Mixed Mental Arts episode in which Hunter and Brian Callen, um, they were they were talking about, oh yeah, they were talking about Jonathan Haidt and group selection, and why the way group selection works is why our militant atheist arguments like Sam Harris about religion being only bad are inaccurate, because whether you believe in a god or not, the like believing, the act of believing in God and having these values that are dominant in a culture that people all agree upon, regardless of how true they are, they can have some evolutionary benefits in the same way that aggression can, and things that are often seen as negative. Like this is a super long tangent that that just made me think about this, but it made me think about how I wrote this blog about called Nuclear Weapons or Dark Magic for the Mixed Mental Arts website, and it was basically about how phenomenally, amazingly, like almost evil nuclear weapons are as a thing, that they exist. And I talked about how they were related to aggression in that blog, and Hunter talked to me, and then he wrote a blog in response to that one, and he was talking about how, these psychological values that a lot of people see as bad can have benefits. They're not all bad. And that reminded me of, how some like more modern kind of like popular stoic authors, like I'm thinking about Ryan Holiday, for example. He's written some kind of like pop stoicism, like not actually proper stoicism, just like pop stoicism books. And he wrote this one called Ego is the Enemy, and it's about how, like pursuing the ego too much can be bad, but it's also about how, the ego can be a good thing if you use it for positive reasons. And that inspired me, like Hunter's response inspired me to write a blog about how, for me personally, um, pursuing a healthy way to channel my anger was a way that I improved my low self esteem that I struggled with when I was growing up as a kid and as a teenager. And when I started going to the gym and getting my anger out in a healthy way in my workouts, it made me more confident from a totally vain perspective, because it made me more muscular and it made girls pay more attention to me in high school. So from the ego pursuit of that, it allowed me to improve my low self-esteem and the problems with depression that I had. So, that's my super long tangent way of saying that, aggression can be good, and a lot of the psychological values that we see as bad can have a lot of benefits.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that your ego is something that's necessary, as you were saying. And I think your ego is something that's necessary specifically for men, because your ego is what draws in all of the energy. and all the people that are within your circle, and you're kind of the leader of your entire existence, which is kind of like, it's pretty dope as a man, but at the same time, it's a heavy burden. And I think every man deals with low self-esteem. I think that was one of the main themes of the book, and it's supposed to be that way. You're supposed to have low self-esteem because you haven't done anything. Like, as a man, I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of the red pill community, but basically the leader of the red pill community is this guy named Rollo Tomasi, and he came out with this book called The Rational Male. And he had one of the more I think about it, was probably the most profound quote that's ever been said. It's like, women are human beings, men are human doings. So we basically move shit. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah.
We base our value off of what we provide. Okay. That's the whole reason why it's like, can I kick somebody's ass? You need to know that. That's part of being a man. It's like, what do I provide? Do I really provide protection? Because I could get somebody in my life, right? I could get people in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Am I really a protector?
I think, like, we've talked about this before, I think, and I've talked about this with a lot of people. Like, one of the, this is one of the ways that you can relate this directly to this book. Like, for me, and I think for you too, when we've talked about this before, and a lot of my other friends who work out for the same reason, like, in relation to this book, it's kind of like the mindset that you're conquering your workout. Like, you want to, like, dominate and be the boss and beat your workout, and you look at it as like the enemy, but it's like a healthy way of pursuing something aggressively for the outcome of you being a healthier person.
Well, I would say you're probably battling the ultimate battle, which is the battle with your weaker self. You're pushing yourself to your limit, and you're trying to go like, yo, every time I work out, I'm like, yo, we're trying to get to our closest portion of being Superman. Whatever my version of Superman is, like, I don't know what it is. Like, if it's squatting 450 pounds and that's the most that I could ever squat, and it's like, yo, that was Superman Parker status. If it's, if it gets up to 800 pounds and it's like, wow, that's crazy. Your Superman version is bigger than everybody else's, but you should go for whatever the maximum load you can bear. Like, that's why I like Jordan Peterson's quote of, take the maximum amount of weight that you can bear and just bear it. Like, there's no reason to not. That was also, I think, a quote from Seneca.
That's why I competed in powerlifting for a few years, man. That was what my life was centered around for like 3 years or so. Basically, I must get as big and strong and lift the heaviest weights as possible. That is why I exist.
And the reason why you did that was because that's a very masculine thing. I've seen very few women that would go like, I want to pursue something so I can be the best. Like, they'll be a part of, they'll be like, yo, I want to like be a nurse so I can be a part of and I can care for people. But I've very rarely heard any women go, yo, when it comes to nurses, if there's a nurse in the Olympics, I'm going to get to the top of that shit. I'm going to be competing. Like, that's not what they do. Men love to do that. And if we don't find, like, if there's nerdy people, right, and they never get to that physical level, then there's always an intellectual thing. Like, you can always become a chess grandmaster. You can always become the best programmer ever. You can always, there's always competition there. That's what has basically led us to being, a great nation. And that's why the West has basically ruled over people, because we had the most centered masculinity, I believe, of all. I mean, like, if you look back at manly men, it was most of the people that were like, yo, I get big, I lift heavy shit, I take care of shit when I'm around. And then basically, like, whenever I come around, like, things are taken care of and I don't complain about anything. That was what a man was seen as. Now a man is seen as, hey, like, I rub your feet and I listen to all of your problems. I help you out with half the housework because you have such a hard life. And I want to spend time with the kids, and I lactate and I sync up my period along with you, just like all your girlfriends do. And they call that a dude. And it's like, that's not the game we play, Like, we conquer shit, and then we get hungry and we come back home and we're like, listen, I got a big ass carcass. I put that shit on the table, cook it up nice for me because you know it took a lot of strength to do it, and you know your ass couldn't. I also conquered this land, so you had more places you can plant shit, and you can like stay and sync up your period with all the other people that either I provided for or my homies did, because I got other homies that are with me in my network, and they also know how powerful I am. And we all just get this. We get this food. We get this money. We do whatever. We collaborate. That's what we do. And that's what being a man used to be. Now it's like, yo, it's the game is messed up, man. The game has been messed up for a long time. And I'm glad this book came out, because when a professor that's in the most feminized of environments actually goes like, listen, the game's so messed up, I have to make this book. I have to tell people about how men need to whoop some ass. That's what we need. It's not a want. Ladies, it is not a want. We need to whoop something's ass. And that something doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be something physical, but there needs to be something that needs to be conquered.
I think the point of one of the main points of this book is that it's like the something is just any goal. Like you have to beat any goal that you pursue, really. Like it's not even like another person. It doesn't even have to be another person. It could be like, I want to figure out this physics problem that no one else can figure out, or something like that, right? Like it said, like you said, it can be an intellectual thing.
And the thing about it is women think that we're assholes, and they'll call it toxic because we'll go, listen, shh, don't talk to me real quick. I'm doing shit, and this is like I got to be better than everybody. And they'll be like, why aren't you listening to me? And it's like, bitch, I'm trying to solve the world's problems right now. What's wrong with you? Like that's what we get mad about. Like that's what we do. It's like, yo, when you're sitting up there and like I said, you're doing like this whole thing, you're like, why is he caring about me right now? It's like, I was out killing bears, making sure he didn't maul you and the kids, son. Why are you out here messing with me and trying to get me to be you? I'm not you. And the thing about it is like, I'm just happy that this book came out, because there's so many things that are going on worldwide right now where I'm like, yo, are you serious? Are you trying to say that you don't need us? The people that made the skyscraper and the heating and the cooling, the things that made you very comfortable. And we took the time, we were like, listen, man, I want to be the best at making motherfuckers comfortable in their house. Let's make some AC. Let's make some central heating, and everybody gonna have that shit, and I'm gonna make some money off of it. Well, why? Because that's what I like doing.
And I think another important point that makes me think about is that, like, whether we're talking about masculine or feminine traits, like it's kind of good for both genders to pursue both of them in varying amounts. Like you mentioned earlier that there are female UFC fighters too. Like women can accomplish some of the same goals as men can, not all of them, but they can pursue the same kind or similar types, or they can take the same psychological stereotypical masculine trait and use it to pursue whatever goals they want to pursue, right?
But the problem is that it's become very popular to shame men for just doing what we do. That's my issue. Like women can pursue, and nobody stopped and said anything about them not being able to. Men, however, if you're like, yo, I really like doing aggressive shit, and sometimes I can't listen to you in this aggressive shit because that's just the kind of guy I am, then they'll go like, oh, you're just not sensitive enough, and you have to be on my side. We'll go, okay, if you don't want to do that, then we'll just work around you. Men are mostly like, we'll work with you on wherever you're at. Women don't do that. They go, be more where I'm at, because where I'm at is better than where you're at. And that's where I've got a problem. I'm like, yo, nobody's saying that you can't. And I have no problem with that. It's kind of like, I went to school for biomedical engineering, and there were actually a lot of women in there. Okay. But afterwards, I went off into the workforce to do like the typical engineer track. There were a lot of women that were like, I know I went and everything, but I just want to be like a nurse or something like that. Or I want to be They did other things. Not a lot of them actually pursued being an engineer, because when it got down to it, they were smart enough to do it, but they didn't want to have that be their life. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's like when you have the choice, there is something to that whole, sometimes people prefer And on the grand scheme, there are some women that do it, but the reason why a lot of like take Scandinavia for instance, right? And I know that Jordan Peterson has made an example of this 1,000 times, but in Scandinavia, you have even pushing for women to do more guy stuff, and they don't do it. They don't want to. So it's kind of like even when it's pushed, it's like they like women don't want to do that. But when men continue to do what men do, then they're like, well, you're being oppressive. And the only reason that the way things are in these high paying jobs like engineering and everything, it's not because women don't want to pursue it. It's because men have to be this nefarious figure. And you can ask a bunch of questions like, how can we
Yeah,
get more
like
women to debate? But
that's a good point. Like it's not the like the point that men accomplish these things more often. It's not necessarily totally a good thing. Like it's not like all guys want to be like crazy and obsessed with things. Like another example I was thinking, well, like if you think about a lot of like people who we see as super successful men and whatever goals they're pursuing, like a lot of them have this kind of like psychologically unhealthy obsession with whatever they're trying to accomplish, and that's why they accomplish it.
we'll take the president. Who would want that job? You're constantly castigated,
Yeah.
and literally with whatever decision you make, you know that there's going to be a portion of people that are going to hate you for making the decision that you made. Okay.
Yeah.
There are dudes that will sit up there and go like, I don't care about all that. I have to be president. And that's it.
Yeah.
Were you going to
Dusty,
say
we haven't
something,
heard
Dusty?
from you in a
I
while.
feel like you're like talking over you.
Yeah. You there, Dusty?
Yeah, I was just saying Trump is like the perfect person that fits that mold. Like, I don't think he really cared about doing the job itself. I think he just really loved having the accolades of being in that position and being elevated to that office. So,
I'll tell you this much.
I don't really think he really
Remember
cares
when
much
Obama
about
roasted
running the
him?
country.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
before he ran for president, right?
Yeah, before he ran for president, remember Obama roasted him? He was like, one thing that they'll never call you is president of the United States. And I think that that's all. He did all of that just for that quote.
Yeah,
That
totally.
was it.
He was totally just like, challenge accepted.
Basically, I think that was the only reason that he ran. I think that was the only reason that he wanted to win as bad as he did. And honestly, I think that's the only reason that he did kind of an okay job was because he was just like, I just want people to say I did a better job than that dude. Seriously. And I don't think it went any further than that. And that's psychotic. But only a man. But as a man, I can understand that.
That doesn't seem that different from the ambitions of most politicians. I want to do better than the last guy.
I don't know.
I don't know if he actually accomplished that, though.
Yeah, I don't know. It's debatable. I don't know, man. I don't like it. Well, I was telling you, by the way, Dusty, that I'm reading Obama's new book, A Promised Land. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I
It's
don't know.
okay. It's very
it's very like
very rational.
He's so Obama-y. That's what annoys me. He's like, he's
like
the noble pursuit
so
of the democracy. I'm reminded of that sitting in this White House here.
Whenever he talks, I just
well, it's basically Obama times 10 with anecdotes about his life. Really, I thought the best portion of the book was his explanation of his decisions around like the financial crisis and trying to rationalize the stuff that was going on and the kind of decisions that they made about that, which I was like appreciative to hear his thoughts about it. Because I get why people are pissed off that they didn't let these banks just like burn in flames. But I think the biggest problem with that, and it's something that I heard Matt Taibbi talk about recently, is that the banks got to a point where they were actually too big to fail. And that's because they didn't break them up into smaller entities. So it's not like, I bet if Obama could, he probably would have let them fail. But unfortunately, these big ass entities are allowed to grab up power. And what happens is these companies just get way too big. And when they're that big, they take up 10% of the market share. If that falls out, then catastrophe happens. Like, look at what they did. So, yeah, they got too big, had to bail them out. Sucks. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're like way off topic here.
Yeah. Well, what else do you have to say about what Parker and I were just talking back and forth about for so long, Dusty?
Well, I know you were getting into the Peterson and kind of like, I do admire some of the early Peterson stuff.
Yeah, me too.
However, yeah, it's just a problem because I know Peterson doesn't go super hard, well, at least not in the very beginning, into culture war arguments. He mainly tried to pare it down to, basic psychology and things like that. Like he's not going into like Gad Sad territory where he's just constantly ridiculing postmodernists, quote unquote, and feminists.
Yeah.
And that really wasn't Jordan Peterson's thing. He really genuinely wanted to help people, which was good. I think he had a good heart going into it. But yeah, there are just some people, I just don't like the culture war shit anymore. It just kind of pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because right now, the culture war arguments are really hot. And when I mean hot, it gets like normal people who don't care about shit involved. Just think about like the types of shit that's going on right now, Dr. Seuss and cancel culture and all that other bullshit. Like the toxic masculinity thing is kind of right in there with the culture war. And that's why I really just like this book. He didn't get into the culture war. It's just, culture war is just a big ass waste of time to me. Like, I don't need 10 articles talking about Dr. Seuss or fucking Gina Carano getting canceled. Like, let's talk about some real shit,
And then also Lil Nas in his Satan shoes.
Yeah, like he did that shit on purpose to troll people, and they fell for the trap. It's like, you guys are fucking gullible. You guys fell right into his trap by acting like idiots. But I don't know, maybe they should just bait people. He was definitely trolling. I applaud him for that. He got a bunch of people talking about him, so that probably got him some pretty good publicity for that. But yeah, I kind of feel that like the culture war space is just populated by grifters now.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay.
What do you think about that clip that this is? Well, it doesn't matter, but what do you think about that clip that you sent me? Or did you listen to that whole episode of Crystal, Kyle, and Friends with Shoe on Head, that June chick who's really funny, who you introduced me to?
Yeah, so I did listen to the complete episode, and it's funny because she was really accurate. Like right in the beginning where the culture war shit was really heavy, and this is probably like in 2015, 2014, like around Gamergate when it was just culture war all the time. She was, rubbing elbows with people like Sargon of Akkad and all those other anti-feminist people. And she backed off of those culture war arguments and started getting into policy. And those people who stuck with the culture war were basically calling her a traitor. Even though she still critiques like the same types of things that she was critiquing right in the beginning. It's just that she is now more about policy focused than talking about dumbass feminists on YouTube. But yeah, it seems more and more I'm seeing some of the more noble and non-griftery people who were kind of in that space in the beginning start to talk about the griftery people that are still doing it now. Like we're talking about our Dave Rubins and our Sargons and our Steven Crowders and whatnot.
Yeah, I
So
was telling you, I hadn't heard that about Steven Crowder. What was that about? Like it was Blair White apparently exposed Steven Crowder because he said, "I don't actually care about this trans shit. It's just this thing that I'm saying to be popular." Was that the claim?
yeah, so I guess because I actually watched the Blair White video that was talking about that. So initially, she would go on to Crowder's show to debate Crowder about transgenderism,
Okay.
and they became friends. And then she eventually, he told her, is like, he was just doing this shtick because his audience likes that, not that he actually believes it.
Oh, okay.
And she says, like, I know Blair White has made a video, but she says like these types of things are kind of rampant in the right wing sphere of political commentary, that they're just kind of doing a job and they're not really genuine about what they're kind of spouting online. So this is also, I think Matt Taibbi talked about that as well in Crystal and Kyle and Friends, that like these pundits, it's more of a job to them, and they're more playing a character rather than they actually believe some of the shit that comes out of their mouths. You know, like your
Especially
Candace Owens and
one that I buy especially was Sean Hannity, because I haven't seen him much, but I've seen like brief clips of him a few times, and he's like a fucking cartoon character.
I've seen some clips of his shit, and I was like, man, people eat this shit up. Like, wow. Feeding people bullshit platters for breakfast, and they're loving it. That's why you see so many stupid arguments online. It's just these are the people that kind of follow this shit or your stupid like left wing equivalent.
Yeah, like Sam Cedar or someone like that.
Yeah, or MSNBC.
Yeah.
Shit like that. I just stopped watching national news in general. It's just full of
I
bullshit.
only get my news from YouTube.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's fair. That's fair. It's gotten to a point now where you don't even really get news anymore, though.
Yeah.
Like news is just like when they say news, it essentially is something to sell you whatever it is that you want to get. Because if you look at like right wing stuff, it's like, they want to sell you guns and armor and basically like survival kit shit. And then if you look at the left, they're trying to sell you like usually feminine products and like a lot of Gillette popular kind of items and like shoes and shit. And they just say things to essentially get your eyes on whatever they're advertising. And I mean, it works, and it works. So since it works, I think a lot of people, I think they lean on the fact that it's almost guaranteed money. And now that you get guaranteed money, why would you not keep on going back to the same cash cow? And I mean, let's be real. That's an extreme point of view. The trans issue is an extreme point of view. If you ask anybody who was like, listen, man, what do you believe in so much that you would put your dick on the line for it? And it's like, yo, I believe that I want to be a woman so hard that I'm going to chop this shit off. And it's like, yo, man, it's fucking crazy. Like if that makes people feel a certain type of way when you find out about that, but still small portion of the population. And they make their grievances seem like they're bigger than I even think that the trans community makes them. And maybe that's why Blair White kind of,
yeah, that's
brought
I
attention to the
totally
whole
get
thing in the
that.
first place. What's up?
Yeah, yeah, I totally get that. Like I've literally like I've talked to trans people and not very many, but I haven't come across a single trans person who like literally like like a trans a trans woman who's biologically a man who thinks that they literally are biologically a woman. Like they're not in denial of reality about that. Is in like I said, small sample size, but that's like why would that be the case? That's a political narrative about like your gender identity.
And the thing about it is they'll take something that's, and I know this and I know the tricks because I'm black, and that's, if you look back to the 70s, black people, that was the go-to. Anything bad ever happened, it was a black person that did it. And they just choose different sort of groups that they're like, all right, this is the group now that we're gonna like hit on. So my lifetime has been black people. It's been um, especially after 9/11, anybody that was of Middle Eastern descent, even if, and not even really Middle Eastern descent, if you were just brown skinned and you just looked the wrong shade, and your accent was just not necessarily the the standard of the area, that was it for you, man. That was it. And that was baited by the news as well. And that's something that is just a popular thing to do. I think that's why even now this book is more relevant than ever, because to separate people even more, the feminist thing is kind of lumped along all with that. They look at whatever minority they can and they go, how can we make people pissed off today? And they do whatever is going to allow people to be most pissed off.
Yep.
And
Well
unfortunately,
said.
women get the most pissed off.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely. Oh, Dusty got kicked out. Hopefully, he'll be back in a minute there. Yeah, I mean the outrage culture on both sides, or like all sides, is like pretty funny and kind of
Well, that's what
entertaining.
happens when you lose masculinity, because you don't have anybody that tells anybody to shut up. There was a time, like, this is what makes me mad about the loss of masculinity within our culture. Because there was a time where Coca-Cola would have gotten a letter from somebody that would have been like, "You offended me with whatever," and they'd be like, "That's real nice, but we're Coca-Cola, and you can go fuck yourself," and that would be the end of the conversation. That's what masculinity gives you. But now you know what you have. You have people go like, what do we do? People are upset. They might not buy our product. And it's like, listen, Coca-Cola's been around for a long time. What are they going to do? Stop drinking delicious beverages? No, no. Like, you don't have to bow like that. You really don't. You don't. And there's nobody that goes like, listen, you're acting like a child. You don't have a real grievance. Shut up. Have a literal Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up. That's what you have to do. But like I said, that's what happens when you let things get out of control and you have men that like sit up there and they bow to shit that isn't real. There was a time where it was like, yo, shut up. I just killed a Wolverine. I don't care about what you feel about anything. I killed a Wolverine so everybody could live. I get to say about what's going on now because I know. I save you from Wolverines. I make sure this whole family is together. But now they disrespect that because you know who your daddy is now? The government.
You just made me think of that whole Eddie Murphy line from that. I don't remember whether it was Raw or Delirious, and he's like quoting Richard Pryor's response to Bill Cosby complaining about Richard Pryor swearing, and he said, "Tell Bill Cosby I said to have a
Have
Coke
Coke
and
and
smile
smile
and
and
shut
shut
the
the fuck
fuck
up.
up."
That's right. Well, that's the thing about it is seriously, we don't have that anymore. And the thing that I love about this book is that they pointed out the fact that men have a put up or shut up kind of mentality about things. You're like, listen, you can say everything, but if you can't do anything about it, like, remember, I thought it was profound at the beginning of the book when he was talking to all of these MMA fighters, and he's like, "Oh no, I'm just going to philosophize about it." And they're like, "Oh, so you're pussying out, so you're just not going to fight." And then He's like, well, I want to be known as a pussy. So then he had to finally put up or shut up. He couldn't philosophize his way out of this fight. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what when it ultimately comes down, it's kind of like what Dusty was saying when it was like, yo, it's not about a culture war, it's about fact. And the fact of the matter is that men like put up or shut up moments where it's like, yo, I put my brawn against your brawn. I put my intellect against your intellect. And at the end of the day, we both just have to kind of sit there and accept what happens. That's why men conquer. We either accept the consequences and we're willing to die for those consequences if the situation is dire enough. And we were bred to do that.
Yep. Yep. Basically, that's one of the main messages of the book. Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So and what I don't like is the fact, like I said, I'll say this to the day I'm dead, is that they try to take that away. And there's certain things that we like, and there's certain things that all men provide, but it's not. Now it's looked at as that's toxic. It's toxic because you do that. Like for instance, the biggest one is our desire for like lots of women. Okay, it's like, hey, I wish it was different. I would love to. I would love to be like, yo, there's one girl for me, and I just love her all the time, and I just look at her, and she fulfills all of my needs. I would love that. Do you understand what a burden it would take off of me if I didn't have to sit up there and go like, you'll sit up there and you'll be even with some chick, right? And she'll be good to you and everything, and then you'll just look over and you'll be like, yo, man, but she's wearing the hot pants today. What can I do? My DNA doesn't allow me to not look at that. And then there's no thought process behind that of like, all right, at least if there are dudes that don't go out there, it's like, no, that's what we naturally want to do. And we don't do that for you.
Yeah.
But that's not, nobody ever goes like, thank you for that. They go like, you should have wanted to do it in the first place. It's like, I'm not like you. I don't fall in love like that.
I don't know about you, man, but I would say it seems to me, and well, this is another thing that I know Jordan Peterson talks about a lot, about how this thing that people talk about how traditional family values are less popular and people are being more casual about sex. Like, it seems like that way to me a lot of the time in my adult life, that more and more like women are just as like kind of casual seeming about sex as guys are.
Now they are, but that's fake. That's not even a real victory. That's not a real victory. Like a man that gets a lot of sex, that's a victory because it's hard to get for men. Women that like basically give out a lot of ass, like that's cool and all, but you kind of look at it and you go like, yeah, but all you had to do is just kind of like women don't need game. You don't need game. Even if a chick as long as she looks halfway decent, we'll just go like, oh, I got time. At the very least. We don't sit up there and go like, no, she has to fulfill. We go like, nah, dog. Like, we start from, do you look the way that I want you to look, to can you read? We don't care if you can read at first. If you got the parts that I like.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, that's why you'll see billionaires that are like, how could he have destroyed his whole empire by having sex with that woman that worked at McDonald's? And it's like, because she was fine. And I
exactly. Yeah.
Wife wasn't giving it up that day, and chick at McDonald's, she was like, "You're that billionaire guy," and I was like, "Yes, I am."
Exactly.
And they act like we're villains because we want to. And the problem is every man wants to do that, but not a lot of men do. And nobody goes like, yo, thank you for being strong and going against your natural nature and not going out there and doing what you want to do. But unfortunately, like, they just go like, you're a piece of shit because we don't want to do that, so you should want to do it. I was like, not the same game. Not the same game. You're the one that I hunt. You are the hunted. You don't tell me as a hunter like why I should sit up here and like want to hunt what I hunt. That's just what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Well, like you said, it's like, as much as people have said, I mean, a lot of people have said this a lot already, but it's like an evolutionary need, as you said, to spread your seed to allow the species to go on. Like,
And then they say you're supposed to be a good man, right? And when you are a good man, nobody goes like, yo, I know you wanted to like knock down every piece of Tang that like gave you a side look. And I know you wanted that. And I'm glad that you didn't because you're that faithful to me. But no woman is in the history of womandom has ever said that. They don't appreciate us like that. They'll call it toxic. They'll be like, no, it is wrong. I was like, the same energy that made me want to do that is also the energy that like, make sure that you're cool and like you get to live in the house with me and like you get to raise the kids and everything and get to take care of all of the things that we both care about. And I get to take care of you while you're taking care of those things. Isn't that wonderful? But that's not looked at as being cool now. As a matter of fact, most people say you don't even need no man. And so it's like, you get what you get when you say things like that. Like, dudes that check out and go like, yo, there's a lot of dudes. Have you heard of MGTOW?
Is that
Yeah.
men going their own way?
That's
that
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's some like men's rights activist thing. Is that what it is?
That's part of men's rights, but basically it's a group of men that go like, listen, I looked at the landscape and this game is rigged. They're playing with loaded dice. I'm not playing in the out, motherfuckers. I'm out. and they'll get something like a camper or something like that, and they'll just move off to the woods and they'll just be cool. And they're fine with that. They don't complain, they don't do anything. And you don't hear about these men because they're just deep in the dregs of Reddit going like, yeah, man, I've just been out bow hunting and like eating ants. I like caught myself. And it's cool, man. I'm just out here with my dog. And that's it. And now you've got a bunch of women that are looking around going like, oh, there's nothing but fuckboys around. It's like, well, yeah, because you're like, you made the game fucked up like that. So
Well said.
Made your bed, lie in that shit. Enjoy. That's why you need to read books like this and know what we are. Like women, if there are any women watching this broadcast, this is for you. Know what we are. We want to, like, we don't do things we want to do for you. We want to hurt things. We want to conquer. And you know what we do? We go like, yo, man, but she wouldn't like that. So we don't.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't understand what a burden that is. And instead of saying thank you, you know what you do? You go like, they're toxic. They're toxic. Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to do that?
You sound like
they're great. They're toxic that you would even want to do anything like that. Y'all make me sick. Seriously, you do. And you're making every guy, you're making every woman, you're making everybody sick with your nonsense. Don't do that. Don't make grown men not be what they are. And we know that it's real. That's why, like I said, you got that baroness in England that can look dead in the camera and go like, there has to be a curfew for men past 6 p.m. because they're just such a danger to all of the women. Those poor women in the streets with their dirty short skirts that they wanted to go around and do a slut walk and you couldn't shame them for. Yeah, they're in danger. And then they sit up there and have the audacity when they get to like 40 or something like that and look around and go like, hey, man, why aren't there any good men around? It's like, because you scared them all away. Nobody wants to deal with that shit. I'm just saying, it is what it is. And that's what the game is now. That is what we've made. That's why we need books like this to just be in every library. And we need women to like look and go like, listen, you have a killer that's directly on your hands. Your man is a killer and he doesn't do that shit for you.
Yep.
That's all I got to say. Bitches make me sick.
It's ridiculous.
That rant is definitely going to get made into a clip at some point.
They do, man.
Well, I'm not single, so I don't have as many. Like I have different types of arguments because I got a kid, so it's like your brain chemistry changes once you have one, well, at least should change. But because my main method of operating is how can I keep the family unit together.
Right.
Um, so if I have to sacrifice dumb shit to keep it together, I'll sacrifice that dumb shit because it's not just me that I got to worry about anymore.
But you should be appreciated for the
It's
fact that you did that, though. That's what I'm saying. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not
well,
appreciated. Instead, it's like it's almost expected, and that
well, it's
expectation
yeah.
is it's a lot.
Well, I've told my significant other, hey, the main priority for me is to make sure this girl has a father in her life and that she has a great upbringing, and I will do what I need to do to make that happen. And one, it's better for me to be in the home than statistically, it's better for me to be there in the home with her than her to have some stepfather. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she knows the statistics about stepfathers and daughters, but I ain't letting that shit
They
happen.
don't.
If I yeah, if I can if I can help it, I ain't letting that happen. So I'm willing to endure bullshit to keep the family together. Um,
No,
there's like a constant battle. Like, yeah, whatever. This bullshit is not worth sacrificing my daughter's life over. So,
Yeah. You're making me
I
um,
really
understand.
glad that I have no serious relationship with with one single woman right now.
well, it's
No,
different when
man,
you have
that's
kids, man. Like it's different when you're in a serious relationship, but once you have kids, it's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, I know,
Um,
man. Like I have friends who have kids, and well, I mean, there's no possible way I can understand until and or if I do have my own kids, I'm sure. But I mean, from
yeah.
what I've been told, I mean,
Well, like
like what
yeah,
you said
like
about
I've
how it totally changes you. Yeah.
well, it changes you, and since I'm armed with more knowledge than the average dad, and when I say that, I'm saying I've read the relevant books. You know, just you can read Hillbilly Elegy, and you can glean what happens when you have a fucked up home where the parents aren't together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's just a bunch of statistics you can look at. Like a lot of the books that I've read, like even Jonathan Haidt's book talks about some of that a little bit. But right now, I'm willing to endure bullshit to make sure things stick together. And I try to make that an important point so that my wife understands that. So if she sees me like brushing off certain issues she finds important or saying shit like basically like saying things that leverage the status of the relationship, especially if it's something that's silly, uh, like like here's a scenario. It's like saying I didn't cheat, I didn't steal, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not a boozer, I go to work every day. You can't say that some little quirk about me is a deal breaker. There is nothing in that that's a deal breaker. You
Man,
might not like a certain.
that makes me
it,
think about how yeah, I won't say who it is, but uh one of my family members, they were having, relationship troubles, and they were thinking about leaving the person they're in a relationship with for this other person who they started to just recently feel really strongly about, and they were writing off the person they were with for little petty things like not rinsing out dishes or some shit like that, and as if that tells you that they don't actually truly love you. But it's just really an excuse because you're afraid of actually solving your problems, and you want to accuse the other person of being the cause for the things that you need to work on.
Okay, can I just ask a
Yeah,
question real quick? Was that a
yeah.
man or a woman that was trying to break that up? It was a woman, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't
That was a
actually.
dude?
Yep. Yep.
Oh man. All right. Well, hey, happens.
Oh wow. Well, yeah. So
That is
basically, what
unusual.
I'm saying is I use um, the hard fact of how important the family unit is in respect to, hey, this little petty thing that you think is a deal breaker is ridiculous, so I'm not going to entertain it. Um, and that's kind of like sometimes what it boils down to, that I just have to keep focusing on the goal and not get sidetracked by little things. So yeah, the main focus was for me to stay calm and to try not to jump at the slightest aggression, because that's like a natural instinct, right? If somebody comes at you, you want to go at them back. But I'm at the stage where when when an argument is started, I start to look at patterns and ask about those patterns specifically instead of taking the bait. And usually, when I start asking about those patterns, is when a realization happens, and that thing that might have turned into a petty argument just kind of washes away. So instead of me getting angry about something, like that's how we used to be really bad. Um, we get really heated. I get kicked out of the house and have to sleep in my car.
Holy
Like
shit.
shit like that.
Wow.
Um, but this was like in the beginning. But now that I've mastered the patterns, I know what formulas I need to plug in to settle things instead of trying to like feel around and figure it out. So most of the time it's me realizing that I need to stay calm. I need to figure out what the pattern is, and I need to figure out how I can redirect the anger and make it be shown that the issue is either not genuine. And when I say not genuine, um, either that or there's an underlying problem that's not being vocalized. So if
That's
that's
a
the
major theme
case,
of the book too, man. You're talking about exactly what one of the major themes of the books, or the book rather.
yeah, underlying things that aren't vocalized. Like a lot of
Yeah.
aggression can happen simply because you don't know how to vocalize something.
Yeah.
And that happens everything from little kids to adults. Yeah, when children cannot vocalize an issue, they either start swinging or they start crying, one or the
Mhm.
other. Um, and when adults can't do it, they start arguments with each other over dumb shit. And I'm not going to say that I've never done it. I just, whenever something peeves me in the relationship, I have to formulate a plan to get the problem solved without upsetting the other person. So it's
And
kind of
this is
like, yeah, it's a balancing act as well as, trying to tamper down my aggression. I know this book is all about being healthy, and I have other methods. Like my getting out aggression for me isn't typical. It's me getting obsessed with certain hobbies and tasks, like attacking a problem, getting all into it, watching a bunch of videos on it, getting totally engrossed in the culture of it. That's how I kind of focus my aggression. My aggression is all about pushing myself towards a goal. It's not about me trying to punch some dude in the face. Like I understand now why it's important that if a dude licks your girl up and down, you got to say something or punch him. Like I understand how much face you can lose from not addressing that. But I do understand is when I'm talking about this relationship you have and you got a family, I gotta tamp down things that will make things get worse. Because I know what happens when I get mad and I push and I try to intellectually belittle my significant other. That shit just doesn't work. And I just have to stay calm, make sure my aggression is focused in different ways, not towards the relationship, but towards other things. And then when I'm dealing with my relationship, I just got to make sure to stay calm, rationalize, look at the patterns, and instead of attacking it like a personal attack, because sometimes she'll say some really shitty things to me, but I know behind those things is not what she's actually saying. It's something else. So, like, I have super thick skin now when it comes to her. So if she says something, I know she has, like, if I said the same thing, the reaction wouldn't be the same. But I'm able to easily turn that stuff around by saying, well, what if I told you this? How would you feel? And that usually equalizes the situation. You know, I try to use the empathic mode to make her introspective about the things that she says, and that if they were done to her, how would she feel about it? Things like that. So that's why I stay calm. I stay calm because it's important for me to have, for my daughter to have two parents in the household and not have to deal with some fuckwad stepfather down the line who may or may not be in that percentage that becomes like a child molester.
Yeah.
So that is kind of like my main focus. And I know once child molestation enters the mix, that is probably one of the worst things that can happen to your kid.
That's for fucking
As
sure.
far as like as far as like their outlook on life and everything like that. So my phone is ringing. I don't know if you can hear that.
No.
But I'll have to call. My mom is calling me, but I'll just call her. She's probably trying to wish me a happy Easter, but I'll call her later.
Okay. It's funny that your mom's calling you when you're talking
Damn it.
about
No,
the importance of the darkness of masculinity.
This is my only problem with like society.
well,
though.
it's trying to tame that. It's trying to
Yeah.
tame it.
Well,
I know
my problem with
once you
society.
guys,
Tame the
if you
beast.
get to the point where you have kids, yeah, I know when you get to the point when you got some children's, you're gonna probably feel the need to redirect that anger, that masculinity. Like
Well, I know that.
I'm with you
just to
guys.
be
When I was
successful.
younger, I had some of those problems too.
Well, just to be successful, you have to redirect
So what
it.
were you
But the
gonna
problem
say?
is, well, just to be successful in life, you have to redirect your aggression. The problem is that you listed all of these things that you're like, listen, I have to redirect my anger in this case, this case, this case, this case, this case, this case, and this case, right? And instead of your wife going, thank you, I know that you redirected all of that anger, and I know that you naturally, like on a normal day, would have probably solved a lot of problems in a barbaric way by, like, if I was a guy, I don't know, putting your fucking fist through my skull. But instead, you went through this whole thing where you're like, I got to approach her with empathy. Because let me ask you something, Dusty. Would you go through any of those issues with just a guy walking down the street, a man, if they'd said half the things that your significant other said to you?
No, of course not.
Exactly. And
There's
instead of
no
understanding
child
that and
that I'm.
going like, yo, If the equality really existed, I would have beat the shit out of you and going, thank you for not, and thank you for being a protector and knowing that I say bad things or whatever. Instead, this is what most men get. Why weren't you a stronger man and you didn't take more of that emotional abuse and you didn't take more of my bullshit? And you want to keep your family together. And you even say, it's not like you were like, yeah, it's roses. Every day is like sunshine. And we're so in love. We're so in love. You went, yo, man, I got to put up with some shit so my daughter's cool. You didn't, and you said that out of duty. You didn't say like, yeah, man, it was rainbows and butterflies. Like every man that says that they're in love, like women go, yay, yay, I'm in love. Every man that says he's in love, he sounds like he's sinking in quicksand. He goes like, I'm in love.
Yeah, I'm not saying that the relationship is bad because it's not
Oh, no, no,
that.
no.
It's
That's even if it's good. That's what I'm saying. But you don't
well,
get thanked.
the problem I am having is I don't think she knows what a good relationship is, and that's the problem. Um,
Mm-hmm.
she's
It's a
not.
common one.
She doesn't have enough experience to know what a good or bad relationship is. Like I do. I've been with some pretty fucked up girls who've done some pretty fucked up things, but yeah, she just doesn't know. So that and it's her. I don't know. It's hard to explain because I don't know what the fuck how women think. So I have no idea. Sometimes I feel like there are certain times where I just can't figure things out. But I think
Are you
that's with
ready?
every
I'll,
guy.
I'll, I'll tell you how women think. Okay. Okay, Dusty. This is exactly how every woman thinks. They have a movie that goes on in their head and it's starring them. It's guest starring them. It's co-starring them. It was directed by them. It was made by them. Everything. You know, the only problem with the story is they don't ever edit it. It doesn't have to make any sense. It just shifts whenever. It'll be like, oh shit, today I want the story to sound like this, and everybody better comply, even you. And when you don't, and you sit up there and you're like, yo, that story doesn't make any sense. They're like, how dare you destroy my movie? And that's how women think.
Yeah, I just trying
That's
to. But she
that's
does
it.
see whenever we talk to like other couples. That's kind of when she realizes that things aren't that bad. Um,
That's what
especially
it
like when
takes.
she's talking to like divorcees and things
Yeah.
like that. Like one of our daughter's friends got divorced, or their mother got divorced recently, and I didn't talk to the mom directly, like or my wife did, but the things I heard is like, yeah, that sounds like stuff people would get divorced over, you know, like pretty bad stuff like alcoholism and going to get a coffee while leaving your 5-year-old and 3-year-old at home with no
Wow.
supervision. Um,
Oh, that's crazy. She
drinking,
decided to make a
yeah,
baby with that dude.
yeah, like that makes sense to me. That kind of stuff is like when, yeah, that's the kind of uh, and then I would talk to her because I was the daycare dad. So I was the one going up and picking my daughter up to school after school, and then I would hang out with her, and I would talk about, oh yeah, Valentine's Day, we're doing this and this and that, and then she was like, oh, my husband never does anything for Valentine's Day. I was like, oh, okay. So I was like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, the
I
kind of a prick.
I remember I was at like a like a really small house party like a year ago or something like that, like maybe right before the pandemic, and I just happened to be with my friend who's a woman, and it was mostly other women who were all in relationships, and most of them were like complaining about, I think Valentine's Day had happened recently, and like most of them were complaining about how their husbands did things like buy them roses and then ditch them to go watch the football game or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, like my relationship is fine. Like she thinks it's bad. I don't think it's bad. Like I don't treat her wrong. I don't yell at her. I don't. I'm not getting drunk. I'm not abusing drugs. Like the problems she has with me are relatively minor, um, but which is probably why we're still together. If we were having some really major problems, we wouldn't have been together this long. And I think like most of the major shit happened more towards like the beginning of the relationship, and now we're just kind of settling in and kind of figuring. We have a lot of things figured out about each other. At least I think I do. Um, it's just I'm more of a problem solver. So sometimes I feel that some of the things she has problems with are are just like fundamental personality things that I just cannot. You can't fix those things, and I'm always telling her like, hey, you have to learn to be okay with these flaws. If you have a problem, yeah, you can talk about some of these things, but your expectations have to be realistic. You can't be trying to compare a relationship to these people you're seeing on Instagram and Facebook, especially any of these
Yeah.
dudes from high school, especially since like the people she's looking at, oh, they're going on vacation. Like this dude has a different girlfriend like every 6 months. Like you think he's like super happy with these chicks? No. um,
Instagram
and
Instagram
it's
message came
just
up.
Yeah,
well,
Instagram
yeah, it's just
relationships
like
are totally real.
no, I'm not saying that she believes that. It's like at this point, I have a certain personality, and she has a certain personality, and you just got to be okay with that. You can't try to fundamentally. The only thing you can do is fix your shit. You can't really change a person.
Yeah,
You can
everyone has flaws.
tell them, yeah. So when it comes to aggression, you might have to tamp that shit down once you got some kids, man, because you don't want to
Mm,
lash out at your kids either.
No, that's fine. I don't
Um,
I don't mind
of
doing any of that. It's like I said, my whole thing is I just want there to be, because as men, we're always expected. It's like, no, the women are emotional. You just have to take that. It's like, well, no, that we're aggressive and that we temp that down for you. So don't push it. Otherwise, like everybody looks at Chris Brown around and they're like, Chris Brown was so bad. It's like, was he? What did she say to him? Because I don't see him going around beating anybody else's ass. But there's a certain point that we can be pushed to where it's like, hey, you went into ass kicking territory. I told you something in confidence, and all you had to do was just not fuck with me like that. But instead, you were like, I got to win this fight. I got to say it, because women get to be honest. Women get to say a bunch of shit that men don't get to say. We have to edit everything. We have something that comes right here. We go like, yo, this would annihilate her, but let's just edit it before it comes out our mouth. But women don't do that.
yeah, but
That's all
look,
I'm saying. And
even
your
what
wife
happened
should
with
thank
Chris
you every day that
Brown.
you don't do it.
what about Chris Brown?
Well, yeah, but Chris Brown, like he escalated it, didn't it? Like if you take it from words to fists, the
Oh
I don't
person
yeah,
who
he
know.
hit
escalates it
Rihanna,
to the
right?
next level,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I don't
he
know.
beat her up.
Yeah, he did, and then they
Isn't
went
that
out
what
again.
happened
So I don't know what
supposedly?
she said.
What was
I
that?
don't know, man.
I said they went out again. They went out again after that. So I don't know what she said, but
Oh,
there
okay.
are certain things where you'll be like, yo, and he was also young. Okay, he was a young dude. I think he was like in his early 20s. Like, do you think you could comport yourself if you were in your early 20s and you told some woman, I'm assuming you told somebody something in confidence and you were like, hey, you're gonna be cool enough and not use this against me, huh? And then you're in close quarters inside the car, and it goes like, that's why your mama did XXX thing, and then like gets in your face and does that like typical like going directly in your head type shit, and then you go like,
I
oh
know. I've
shit,
never.
she doesn't think that I'm gonna whoop her ass.
No, there's other things you could do. Like, I don't know. The worst thing I've ever done is I kicked a girl out of my car,
Oh yeah, you
made
told
her
me about
walk
that
home.
before.
That's
Yeah.
about the
Well,
worst
yeah,
thing I've
but
ever done.
you probably had a good upbringing and everything,
But
and you weren't like Chris Brown. So, like, when you don't have options like that, I'm trying to just understand the dude. Because I'm not saying that was the best option, but I'm trying to say that, like, why would you push somebody like that? Like, if I was out with a bear, right? If I had to date bears and I was like, yo, like,
mm,
seriously, don't go all bear on me. Like, I would be really, really nice to the bear because I'd be like, yo, it can maul me at any point in time, but it's really cool that this bear's like not mauling me. It even says that it loves me and everything like that. I'm not gonna all of a sudden, if the bear tells me something in confidence and goes like, "Hey man, I'm really afraid of rabbits," I'm not gonna all of a sudden get mad at him and go like, "Yo,
well,
you little
there's
pussy ass bear, afraid of rabbits? How dare you?" And then like you put one in his face,
yeah,
and
but
then
I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's it doesn't apply that much because if you think about it, there are some short ass weak dudes
Yeah.
that'll step up. So even though that they're gonna get their ass beat, they will step up. So I don't think it applies that much. And you got to think about irrational anger. Like there's no calculation whether they're gonna have to
well, you're
get
not.
their ass
What I'm trying
beat.
to
They're
say
just
is
gonna
there's
start
personal autonomy.
swinging.
You can't put
And
it all
I
on the
guess
man
a
though.
what?
Yeah.
Like women need to comport themselves emotionally. If I have to
Well,
control
when
my
you
aggression,
get to
the
the
least you can do is control your emotionality. That's all I'm asking. Just sometimes.
well,
Just
aggression is
sometimes.
emotionality. It's just a different
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Well,
aspect
it
of
is.
it.
Well, then on both sides,
Yeah,
it needs to be.
but it's not
Then
rational. Do you think aggression is rational?
I'd say
Yeah,
it
I don't think
depends on
aggression is
what
that
you were doing.
rational.
It has to be. Well, it has to be directed. But what I'm trying to say is
Well,
that
I mean, if it can be anything can be rational depending on the right circumstances. Like relating back to the main theme of the book. Like if someone if someone if someone comes and invades your village and threat and kills your and tries to kill your family and rape your wife, like aggression might be the appropriate response then, which is
correct.
why.
Well,
Which,
we can say that there's irrational uses of
of
aggression,
course,
and then
there
there's
are a lot of them.
irrational
Yeah.
uses of emotionality. So
Yeah,
when
exactly.
someone gets
Yeah.
irrational emotionally, you can't aggress irrationally because of that's just what's going to happen. If someone's
No,
irrational with
Mhm.
their
I
emotions and
understand
they
that.
start pushing buttons, then yeah, you can't meet
But
irrationality with irrationality. Is all I'm
what I'm
saying.
trying to say
Mhm.
is just tip it down. Why do you have to press me in the first place? Because the thing about it is there should be like an ease button, but sometimes there ain't. That's all I'm saying. And it's kind of
Hmm.
thought of as societally, it's okay to not have an ease button because no matter what a woman does, it's like, oh, it was all the dude's fault.
Well, it
But if
depends on the culture too, right? Because in certain cultures, it's acceptable to physically assault, I guess, if you want to say that. Like
I don't
if
agree
you
with
go
that
to
either.
more of your honor based culture. Well,
Well, I don't agree with that either.
I'm saying what's societally acceptable. Over here,
Yeah,
of course, hitting a woman is not. But if you're talking about cultures that engage in like honor killings and stuff, where that is actually culturally acceptable, then it's a different paradigm that you're dealing with.
I would say that would be patriarchally oppressive, and I think we're matriarchally oppressed. That's the difference. No, I'm like, no,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
no, that's just what it is. If you were gonna say something to basically make it so women have the upper hand, but they're not physical creatures. They can't do what we do. So, you can't have those draconian kind of measures, and they would never impose those. But you could have things that are like, for instance, when you get into an argument most of the time with women, especially that you're involved with, it's always over this weird kind of mushy never really made solid kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's always something that can be changed at some point in time. And the perspective on whatever is said could be changed. So it could be like, I didn't actually mean it this way. I meant it this way. And that's like usually the verbal trick that a lot of women will like say. It's like, oh, well, like, don't judge me for my past, but I can call you a piece of crap if you have a certain number of women that you've been with. Or you shouldn't shame me for being a slut.
You don't tell them the real number, man. You don't tell them the real number.
That's right. It's like there's like the number of women or the number of men that they've slept with will be like, well, they'll never tell you the number of men that they slept with. They'll just tell you the number of boyfriends that they've had. They'll be like, yeah, X number of boyfriends. It's like, well, what about all the random dudes in between? It's like, oh, there were no random dudes in between.
They don't count.
That's right. So like I said, it's always in this vague place. So now we've made it so you can live on this vague thing and you can have no solid points. And it's just like, oh, you should never hit a woman. It's like, I don't know. Like, what was she doing? What did she do? Did she like whip out a knife on me? Can I hit her then? Or am I still in the wrong? But there's these weird kind of like, will cover the woman's side of things. And that's just more socially accepted now. And I don't think that being oppressive on either side is right. I'm just saying, I think we've gone a little bit over and we've overcorrected because it was really bad to be a woman. Now it's like, not only is it good, it's like, hell, you could essentially get out of a relationship with more than you came into it with. And that's for real. That's like, for instance, marriage used to be like, we at least have an understanding that I will protect you and that I have a duty to you. You have a duty to me. We have a duty to these kids at the very least. Now it's cash in. I can cash in. And then at any point in time, this dude goes, yo, man, like, I don't think that you're doing the right thing. It's like, shut up, bitch. I'll just find another one of you and I'm taking the kids. Bye.
Yeah, I think American culture in general is pretty well balanced, because there are certain things where women have a clear advantage, and certain things where men have a clear advantage. But I think it's pretty well balanced, despite with what MRAs and feminists say regarding our culture here. Like, I understand that. If we're talking about cultures that engage in honor killings and genital mutilation, there's a bit of oppression there, but I really don't see it here in American culture. We kind of have, men are at the top positions of a lot of things, but men also kill themselves more over here. They get the short end of the stick when it comes to custody battles usually. And when they get divorced, half their money's gone. So I think it's pretty well balanced, to be honest. I don't think it's as bad as the extreme ends say it is.
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
that's
I
a high
kind of
price to
agree.
pay to get it. It's like, yo, man, all I want to do is love you and I can lose half my shit. That's crazy. I was like, holy shit, I just want to love you, keep my family together. Ain't that some shit? And for that, what's my reward? Oh, it didn't work out and I'm not happy with you. I get to keep your kids and your money. Bye, motherfucker.
Don't get married then.
Yeah, I guess it all depends on what you're looking for.
I'm just saying. And we want to keep families together. That's a hell of a thing. It's like, look, at least make it even, so it's not like, yo, if things go wrong, she could take everything. And there was a time where it's like there was enough to lose on both ends because a woman
if the woman makes more than the dude, the woman will have to pay.
Well, now they do, but that's not the reason why all of those custody battles and everything were skewed was because it was under the guise that if a woman was by herself, you essentially were such an asshole that you left this woman that you had responsibilities for out in the cold. And that was under the assumption before. Now we're in an age where I don't need no man. And they really don't. So now, why don't we have some more incentive to keep families together instead? Instead, it's like, no, keep it the way that it is. And if you mess up in any way, or now it's gotten down to the point that instead of you being a bad man, it's he's got these personality traits that I just don't
Yeah,
like. His eyes just a little bit off. The motherfucker looks, the motherfucker just
like
breathes out of his left nostril in a way I don't like, and it's not sexy to me anymore. So I need to find another man. And women will do that. They do.
well, here's the ultimate version of that. Did you ever watch the what's her name? Adolazol? Did you ever watch her documentary?
Oh, I oh man, I bailed part of the way through that. I started watching it, but then
Okay.
I was just like, oh my god, this is so fucking
Rachel
terrible. This is
Dolezal
awful.
is the epitome of
That
yeah.
bitch, the chick that wanted to be black.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me tell you why this she is the epitome of that attitude. So um here's the thing. Like she said, like you're telling us about the attitude. Oh yeah, I could be on my own. Blah 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 blah. And I usually use this movie, this documentary, as an example of why that's the stupidest fucking thing to say. Because one, if you watch that documentary, you could see that she's all about. She doesn't give a shit about her kids. Her her kids are in a place where they're getting made fun of every day because their mom's fucking wacky.
Yep.
And and here's the biggest problem. I think during the documentary she was pregnant, and the father of the baby wanted to get married to her, and she was like,
Oh.
no. I was like, fuck, what the fuck is wrong with this woman? I was like,
Wow.
there's a man who knows about this wacky shit that she's into, thinking she's black, and he wanted to marry her and raise this child, but she was like, no, and ended up splitting. I was like, so
Exactly, because women
it's like
think that they
she's
can hit the
putting
lottery twice.
herself, yeah, it's at that point that she's putting herself above the welfare of her own children. She's
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing about her going public with this wacky shit that she thinks he's black is totally fucking her kids over. Like her
Yep.
kids, I think one of them was
She
going to
doesn't
Howard
care.
University. Yeah, and they were getting a lot of flack over that of their and her kids I think are they're adopted. They're not well, her older kids are adopted, but she did have one kid with the other dude that she didn't marry. And the weird thing is, I think the older kids were formerly her siblings. I don't know. It's a weird fucking documentary, but you could tell she lived in a psycho family. So what is a psycho family going to produce? It's going to produce some psychos. So yeah,
Yeah.
she that's kind of like the epitome of instead of taking care of your damn kids, you're putting yourself first. And that's another problem I think just with American society in general is that you got to take care of your damn kids. So you can't be telling everybody that they should split up for the most petty of reasons. It should be a really good fucking reason that you're splitting up. Um,
Yeah.
at least
Well, that's like the
separating
Cosmo.
your kids.
That's like the Cosmo effect. Because like
Yeah,
after the 70s, people thought about that and they were like, you don't need no man. As a matter of fact, you can do better if you didn't have no man. As a matter of fact, you can do better than a man. As a matter of fact, you should be in the workforce competing with them instead of being at home. Why would you want to ever be a stay-at-home mom and take care of your kids and, have the fulfillment of, I don't know, cultivating the next generation? Why would you ever want to do that? Or how about this? You
yeah,
become a career
it's
woman and then you just start raising everybody else's kids by becoming a teacher. Doesn't that sound nice?
well, my wife's a teacher, but teachers are important. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
yeah, it's all about for me. If you're gonna have kids, make that the most important thing in your life. is to make sure that kid's gonna have a good upbringing. Because fuck, like I understand one, the whole like the fatherless black people. I was a fatherless black person. So I understand how fucking, because I'm not an ignorant idiot and I've read a bunch of books, I understand how fucking important it is for me to be in the life of my child. At least when I say be in the life of my child, I don't want to be the dad that gets visitation rights on the weekend. I want to be
Yeah.
there every moment of the day to make sure things are right. Like I
Right.
understand, just even if you're divorced and you got some visitation rights on the weekend, that's actually considered a traumatic event for your child, and that can alter their psychology negatively. It's never going to be a positive thing for your child ever,
Yeah.
unless you beat that child and you're genuinely abusive to that child. It's never going to be a positive thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not saying I'm being abused. I'm not being abused. Like I'm not saying, oh, I'm getting emotionally abused and I'm being strong and I'm staying in this relationship. That's not the case. That's not the case at all. I'm just trying to rationalize and think about, am I actually getting damaged because of an argument? Because I'm so mellow and I don't get heated, so to speak, about those types of things. To me, it's more of a practice of me rolling my eyes rather than getting angry about something.
Right.
Like that's what it is for me. It's like, oh, going through this again. Let's see, what's the formula? What's the pattern that solves this situation? It's not
Right.
going to be like, ah, oh, fuck that shit. What about this shit over here? And trying to start to be aggressive, you know, just rearranging that aggression in a way that's not going to affect my family. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just trying to redirect that shit. But I don't know, man. I think things are fairly balanced in American society. Like, there's definitely pros of being a woman, and I think the pros are increasing more and more. Like the pros of being a woman are steadily increasing.
I
They are
personally
not
prefer being a
decreasing.
man. I like being a man.
Well, yeah, I'm not.
I wouldn't.
Well, you're not
I wouldn't want to
transgender,
like. I
Andrew.
wouldn't want to have a period for one thing. That sounds awful. Bleeding bleeding out of your crotch for days on end, once a month. You can count on it. That sounds fucking awful. Or giving birth. That sounds awful too.
Or sitting around messing up guys' fun. That sounds hard too.
Yeah.
And thinking of new ways to do it too.
Yeah.
Oh, creative ways, yeah. But
Like, how
yes,
about the
I've
view?
always
Let's
thought
sit
about.
around and let's sit around and talk about a bunch of bullshit. And then when our husbands get home, we'll talk about all the bullshit that, he doesn't want to hear about after being at his job. And you're like, how about we do that?
Well, we
That sounds
both
great.
we both
It's fun.
well, at least we both work, so we don't have I don't have to deal with the view or anything like that. Um, but
Oh no,
yeah, it's
then
just
you have to deal with the real life version of the view. You have to deal with all of the if your wife's a teacher, you got to deal with all of the teacher drama. It's like, can you believe what Cheryl did? It's like, I don't give a fuck about Cheryl, but whatever, sure. Tell me what the fuck
sometimes
Cheryl did.
I get into that teacher drama though, because
Yeah.
I'm the husband. I know the other teachers, and like they're like we hang out
They're garbage,
sometimes.
aren't they? Yeah, they are.
Well, there are some teachers that are genuinely garbage teachers. Like
That's correct. I
I
know.
I really got this because of the pandemic. I really got to see like the difference in teaching styles of some teachers.
Oh
I'd be
yeah.
like I'd be really pissed off if my daughter was in some of these classes.
Dude, I experienced a little bit of that when I finished my last semester during the when COVID first started, like the last of my classes shifted to the teachers can conduct them in any virtual way that they want. So my philosophy teacher had like virtual classes, which were cooler because you could still have a face-to-face interaction. And then my other teachers just gave extra assignments, like do more reading. We're not going to actually talk to each other in any format whatsoever.
Yeah, you get to see the lazy teachers versus the enthusiastic teachers. Like basically, in the case of my wife, it's like younger kids, kindergarten, first grade. And the difference between a good teacher and a bad teacher is whether the teacher acts like the host of Blue's Clues versus like a professor teaching older kids. Like you could see that some of these teachers should not be teaching kindergartners. It just doesn't make sense. But some of these teachers get really into it. And they're very animated. And they're like, in a way, especially when you're dealing with the younger kids, you have to put on a little bit of a show. It's like a little act that they got to put on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get involved in the teacher gossip. I hear about all the bad teachers, all the good teachers, and yeah, women and
The teachers that
gossip.
are doing each
Yeah,
other. Yeah.
yeah, the women and the gossip. Um, I don't mind listening to it because it's somewhat entertaining. But sometimes it's not. The only time it's not entertaining is when your wife is involved somehow. It's like,
Uh-huh.
and that happened at her old school, where like the
Mhm.
teachers are like jockeying for position and pecking at each other and making alliances with these groups and those groups. I was like, ah, crap, this is so stupid. But
No, man. Women keep
I didn't.
women keep that high school shit going for a long time. They'll keep that shit going into their career. You'd be like, "Can you believe what Bonnie said?" No, I was doing my
Yeah.
fucking job. I don't know what Bonnie said.
Yeah, well, in this case, it's like, oh, this teacher's been absent today. What's their excuse? And then
And then they say something under
someone's,
their breath, like probably drinking and doing coke like she does on the weekends.
yeah, something like that. Basically. Like, I think one of the teachers was like, oh, I'm going to take a week off for my birthday and I'm going to Miami. And
Really?
yeah, and this
And then
is
she
at the
comes back in
time,
walking funny.
I have no idea because when she got back, um, she had a quote unquote medical emergency. She was absent for even longer, and nobody knows what the medical emergency is except the principal and some other person. So everyone's trying to find out what happened. But she went down, and everyone's saying, "Oh, she's just making an excuse so she could go to spring break in Miami," because this was like the week that they enacted a curfew in Miami because it got too fucking crazy down there. So she was in leave in Miami the same time that all the spring breakers were down there. And then we're hearing about medical emergency. It's like, shit, did she get COVID or what? No, she didn't want to say nothing. But no,
Oh,
everyone thinks she got COVID while she was
or
spring breaking
herpes,
in Miami.
both.
Well, I don't know if herpes is going to stop you going into work though.
It gets itchy. I don't know from experience.
How would you know?
That's from experience.
That sounded pretty certain there.
Hey, man, I just read a lot, man.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened. I don't know if she got the herpaderps or COVID or what. I doubt it was herpes because I don't think she could use that that explanation to be out because I'm guessing she would have had to give the principal some type of medical documentation. And if I got the herp, I would not try to be out and then have to provide that information to the principal while I'm out. So it's probably something more significant,
I would have
like
went like
probably
it's
COVID.
shingles. Shingles of the crotch
Shingles.
specifically.
Shingles of the crotch. But yeah, I like listening to their gossip. You know, them going back and forth.
Yeah, I mean
Or,
it's kind of funny to like look at it from the outside looking in.
hey, look at what happened to this teacher. Well, it's entertaining
No,
because I don't have to deal with the same thing at my work. It's just do my job and get in and out.
that's right. Mostly
But
dudes at
yeah,
your
there's
job,
like
right?
gossip, but it's only gossip. It's not really gossip. It's like this motherfucker got fired the other day because of this shit. It's like that's about it. That's about is the extent of the gossip that happens. Is this fucker over here got fired? What did he do? Oh, he didn't do his job. That's like
See how dope
we don't
guys
talk
are?
about anything. Oh, other than that, yeah, because we care about doing our jobs. So if we're gonna gossip about shit, it's gonna be gossiping about people not doing their jobs or getting
Yeah.
That's right.
fired.
We don't
That's
sit up
about
there
it.
and get involved in their lives or anything. Like women will tell you about like motherfuckers' marriages, talk to you about like what their hobbies are. They'll be like, "Did you know that Robbie goes out to?" No, I don't fucking talk to Robbie. He's not in my section. He doesn't have anything to do with my job. I don't give a shit about Robbie. And then it's like, you're so insensitive, and you'll get that, and you'll be like, I'm keeping lights running. I got other shit on my mind. I don't know what are you talking about.
Yeah.
Got a castle to run and shit. What do you mean?
Yeah. But yeah, aggression, man. Aggression.
That's
Yep.
right. And then we just, we kind of focus it in, and then we do our like little programs and shit like that. And then on the weekends we get to go out and do like cool shit and like, I don't know, go out running, whatever. But the thing about it is just men, we're aggressive creatures. And I think it should be more understood in general
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
like
Yeah.
appreciated, because if it wasn't around, then like borders wouldn't be around. There'd be like no real armies, and there'd be like no special forces, because yeah, like there's got to be somebody to do some shit that other people don't want to do, and guys are usually the ones that do it. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah, one of
Respect.
the pivotal moment of guys being guys in the book is when he challenged his karate friend to like a fight.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
definitely.
to us, that's like, oh yeah, we could see that shit happening. It's no big deal, and it seems normal to us. It's like, yeah, my style is better than your style. Let's duke it out. Um, but I don't know. What do women must think? Oh no, they're gonna fight each other over some stupid bullshit. To us, it's not even
Women,
stupid. It's just like these
Like,
dudes dedicated large chunks of their time to a task, and they want to
mhm.
see if this task is superior or at least worth doing.
Yeah.
So that's what they're
correct.
doing. They're
They're
seeing that.
training themselves and testing their skills and fulfilling a goal. And like you see a lot of MMA fighters too. Maybe they're talking shit to each other before they fight, and then they fight and almost kill each other. And then often after they fight, they're like hugging each other and friends and shit because they got their aggression out, and it was like a bonding experience.
Well, it was a great part of the book where he explains like how promotion of the fight drives audiences to watch the fight. So
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about when people, or at least when fighters have some type of personal animus against each other, that brings in the big bucks. So,
Yep. Yep.
and oftentimes when they bring like the boring fighters together, uh, those don't really get as many pay-per-views. So it seems like that in itself is a strategy to make more money while fighting, just to be completely aggressive and shit talking.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if
that's what Floyd
yeah, it's
Mayweather did.
either
That was his
yeah
thing.
yeah, it's either a natural aspect of
Yeah.
the person or it could be manufactured, um, especially to get those dollar bills. Like, hey, if I'm gonna talk shit to somebody and I'm gonna get more money doing it, then hey, let's go ahead and follow that path.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it almost always
But that's a
is
person that's like, yeah,
manufactured.
that's if the person wants to be um like raised up. Well, that's just like they want to be entertainers. We're talking about like The Rock, like he was an
Mm-hmm.
entertainer. He wasn't like the best wrestler, but he was entertaining. And when we're
Yeah.
talking about like these MMA people that talk shit, like we're talking about, you know, what's that Irish bastard's name?
Chael
Conor
Sonnen.
McGregor.
Chael Sonnen was a big shit talker.
No,
Yeah,
Conor
so that,
McGregor is who
yeah,
you're
Conor
talking.
McGregor. Yeah. Is that who you're thinking
yeah,
of?
so whenever we get these shit talkers shit talking, that's when you get a lot of money. Like
Mm-hmm.
these people know that when they get a lot of people buying those pay-per-views, that they're gonna get paid.
Yep.
So it's kind of incentivized. Not only is it incentivized by the fighters themselves, but also the promoters, the owners. You know, when they're making these promotion videos, they always try to make it some type of personal thing. And even when it's like people from the same fighting club, they try to make it more personal. But sometimes it ends up being personal. I
Mm-hmm.
think that some of these rivalries do extend past a facade.
Oh yeah.
'Cause what?
The most recent one that I can think of was Daniel Cormier and John Jones. They genuinely
Oh
do not
yeah,
like each other. They
yeah,
like if they
because
saw each other
they
in the street, they would definitely throw hands, like in real life.
yeah they don't like each other. I know. During one of the weigh-in, well, it wasn't a weigh-in; it was like a press conference, and they just started throwing blows on each other. Like this wasn't a weigh-in; they
Oh,
were just
really? Oh.
wearing regular. Yeah, they were wearing regular street clothes, and it looks like John Jones got way too close to Cormier, and then Cormier just swung on him.
Oh, wow.
That's another thing with
Yeah. Well, I
Connor.
mean,
Didn't Connor throw some shit at a bus? And then
oh, that was the Khabib
Khabib,
Nurmagomedov fight. Yeah, when it was
yeah, and then
Conor
Khabib
versus
went and
Khabib. Yeah.
punched one of Connor's dudes after the fight.
Oh, wow.
Well,
So
no,
that was some real beef. That was some real
yeah,
beef there.
yeah. There were a couple of like real beefs, but most of them were manufactured. I mean, Don King was the king of that. I mean, technically, Muhammad Ali, he was considered the greatest because hell, he would talk mad shit, and he was the first person that was like, "I talk all this shit, and guess what? I back every last bit of that shit up." He was like, I tell you, you ain't shit, sucker. Like
Or
we get into
Mike
the mat,
Tyson.
the ring, you ain't.
Yep. Well,
So
that's
you know,
that's
Yep.
like
And you got
that's
Mike
like
Tyson,
one of
who
the
was kind of
things.
taught.
That's one of the aspects of the book that both of you guys were mentioned before about how, you know, the reason that the English professor wants to train for an MMA fight and have a physical fight is that he feels like he's physically weak, and he's channeled his aggression through intellectual sparring with his friend, and then they have like little contests of trying to beat each other in cardio on the stationary bikes that he talks about a few times in the book too. But he's always been like physically out of shape, and he's getting it, and he's in like his late 30s, almost 40s, and is getting out of shape, so he wants to get into shape and show that he can be just as physically tough as he can be mentally tough.
I think it reminds me of that Friedrich Nietzsche quote. I believe it goes, "If a man does not know that he's a man, he will spend the rest of his existence proving it to be so."
Yeah, that's a
So,
good quote.
so I mean, basically, you need to get some, just as a man, that you need to get some kind of confirmation of the fact that what you're doing is going to lead to your team winning. As a matter of fact, that was one of the portions of the book that I found fascinating. It was like, you don't get the same kind of reaction from individual sports as you do from team sports. Once you feel like you're part of the whole thing, like think about how when people talk about a football team, they'll say, we didn't go to the Super Bowl this year, almost
Mm-hmm.
like they played too.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
everybody gets involved in that. And that's kind of like, as a football player and as just a man in general, you go, am I doing my part, the best part that I can in this entirety of this big thing? So I think that a big part of masculinity isn't just the task that you have to do, which would be, like the manly thing is facing mortal danger, or having the whole entire purpose of you being in a ring is to inflict mortal danger or mortal damage, I should say. And then also having your goal be so big that you're willing to risk your body, i.e., football, to get a football across a goal line. You're willing to risk life and limb to do something to be of use to somebody. So when it's an individual sport, you're proving your usefulness because, like, look, I can best people. I can best a man that was trained to best me, and I can do that. When you talk about your utility as far as football goes, like, listen, if we have a goal, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I've displayed that now. And if you can display that in some way, whether that's at your job or whatever, like even if you're a computer programmer, you can go like, yo, I bring out code. People use my code within whatever they do at my job, right? So that means that I'm useful. That was a big part of the masculine kind of framework that he was talking about too. And I think that it kind of goes into a larger theme of masculinity going along with purpose. And to go to what Dusty said earlier, focusing your aggression. So if you could focus your aggression on just a simple goal, or not even a simple goal, just a goal, and play your part and be proud of playing your part like that, then that is the true form of masculinity. And that's the true form of you feeling fulfilled as a man. I think that's even why, as a professor, he talked about how he was having some issues as an adjunct. And he was like, hey, am I really even doing the best that I can with this adjunct stuff? Because there was this kind of underlying theme of people thinking that he was a joke for pursuing this entire endeavor, and them not seeing the utility of him going down this path. He said, screw all of that, went along the path anyway, and he still kept in mind that he wanted to achieve goals within academia as well. And he actually said that the fact that he proved himself in one portion of his life proved that he could excel in another portion. So it's kind of like it went hand in hand. By proving to himself that he could, inflict mortal damage, he also proved to himself that he could succeed within his own career. And I thought that was great because he found out he was useful in one way. He translated that into being useful and being more masculine in another way.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really well said, man. I think that's a good way to kind of sum up the book in general there, because I was thinking about ending it about here if you guys are cool with that, because we've been going for a couple hours. I think
No,
that
no, no,
was
no. I'm totally cool with that. But I wanted to kind of round it out too, because
yeah,
I just went like, yo, man, like if we're going to talk about all of masculinity, you need to know that you need the physical and you also need the soft and the hard, the yin and the yang of all of it. And there's toxic portions, but if that toxic portion can be basically focused, then is it toxic? Because aggression is everywhere. If you can focus it on aggressing towards who might hurt your family, then that's good aggression. If you can focus your aggression towards being absolutely stalwart in whatever your goals are, as in, he did both things. He became a professor and he excelled, and he tried to excel within academia, and he also excelled physically. So you kind of need both, and that's all masculinity, and it's not just necessarily bad carte blanche. And that's all I got to say about the book. I liked it.
yeah, yeah. Well said, man. Totally. So yeah, I'll say what I always say at the end of my videos here, and then you guys can and Dusty, you can give your final thoughts there too, and you guys can give any plugs or anything like that. So yeah, thanks to everyone for watching this. Hope you found our discussion about this as fascinating and entertaining and educational, as I'm sure we all did. And Thanks to those of you who clicked the like button on this video, share it everywhere, subscribe to the channel, click the bell to be notified when I come out with more videos. Got a few other podcasts coming up. I'm going to do that one that I've been meaning to do with Chris about eugenics, because he had that idea because I did a video review of a book about eugenics that I read, and one of his sons has Down syndrome, and so if we lived in a society where there was eugenics, his son would have been like euthanized. And then I've also got other book review videos coming up. Oh, looks like Dusty got kicked out there and he's back there. Yeah, lots of other book reviews that I'm going to continue doing on, like Anarchism and Other Essays that I've been doing, and Jordan Peterson's new book Beyond Order, and Foucault's History of Sexuality, and Less Than Nothing by Slavoj Žižek, and lots of other podcasts coming up. We're going to do a movie chat on John Wick soon also, which will be awesome. And we've got lots of other stuff coming up. And also, thanks especially to those of you who give me money on Patreon, which I greatly appreciate. And I'll put the description for my page, the link for my page in the description of this video, as I always do. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And find healthy ways to channel your aggression so you can use it for accomplishing good things in the world. And so yeah, anything else that you wanted to say to sum up there, Dusty? And anything else either of you guys want to say?
Yeah,
Well,
just use your aggression. Aggression is good when you're using it in the right ways. That's
Yes,
why we have cell phones. Because somebody
that's true.
decided to compete so hardcore and focus that aggression into creating an Android phone or the iPhone. You know, Steve Jobs, pretty aggressive fellow, nerdy, but aggressive. So we need aggression. That's how we innovate. We innovate is because people have these sparks of aggression. Women invent shit too. Women get aggressive too. It's just something that's men have that they need to channel in the correct ways.
Exactly. And check out Dusty's channel, Woke Centrist, too.
Yeah, I guess my
and
closing.
hopefully next week we can do the Basic Instinct video chat.
Yes, on our Paul Verhoeven series.
Dope.
All
All right. So I guess I'll end by saying, yeah, if you guys want to follow me or anything like that on Instagram, I'm at AfroPsychonaut88. I'm planning on starting my own podcast here pretty quick. Probably within the next next quarter or so. Just kind of have to get everything put together. But yeah, it's probably going to be under the same name. So watch out. I'm kind of deciding what my format is going to be, but it's probably going to be like fitness, living, and everything else. But yeah, closing statements. Focus your aggression, of course, to keep that theme. And also, don't ever let any body within this life tell you as an aggressive being that's bad, just carte blanche, or that it's toxic, or that masculinity is toxic. There's a lot more context that needs to be put into that. And
Yes.
I think that there's definitely an attack that's going on our young men. And I think everybody needs to do what they can to make sure we're all just taking care of one another, especially our men now, because I think there's definitely going to be a crisis of masculinity. It's happening worldwide. And masculinity is a cool thing, man. It's needed, and we would all benefit from it. It'll make better children, and that's what it all depends on. That's what our focus should be on, is trying to make a better world and make it better for the next generation. So yeah, keep an eye out and have a good one, guys.
All right. All right. Thanks again, guys. And thanks everyone for watching again. And adios until next time.